Hello, I'm Bernadette Brady and I want to talk to you about the week 7 of the introductory module in the MA in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology. And this week is all about fate and free will in the cosmos. So a big subject, as many of these weeks are. So the aim here is to give you an overview of this very important subject, and particularly in relationship to astrology or sympathetic cosmology. So that's the aim of the week. Now you can see from the Moodle page, it's laid out as in all the other weeks. You've got this general introduction video, then you've got the weekly description, which is basically just giving you this overview and the task to do. You've also got the required reading and the optional reading. It's been divided up into that way, and the required reading is divided up into primary and secondary sources, so you're aware of those differences. You've also got 3 lots or 4 lots of notes, as you can see. You've got my own notes on determinism, fate, fatalism and free will, and I'll talk very briefly about those terms in a second. You've got Nick's notes on determinism, and that's primarily focused from his history of astrology. And you've got a direct link to the library to my own PhD, which was actually on fate within astrologers. Now, with my PhD, that's a direct link to the PhD in the online library. It's chapter 8 is the required reading for this week, because I've picked chapter 8 for you to read because it is the looking at what astrologers are actually saying about what they think fate is and how it works in their life. So it comes under primary material. It's out of my fieldwork, and the reason I've chosen that for this week's reading is because it will show you the diversity of beliefs which is current within the astrological community, but also I suspect is actually fairly well current right through all sorts of communities. Fate is not just the domain of astrologers. So there's that, and then you've all the readings are actually here as PDFs, etc., so you can work through those. But that's why I've chosen that particular chapter for you. So just very, very briefly then, with this week, is there are many, many different views on fate, and fate is the old classical word, you can think of it that way, for determinism, and determinism is the modern word. So determinism itself is a very contemporary concept from the 17th century forward, and it's referring to a particular law in physics, and the law of gravity, etc., fits into that. So it's based in the sciences. All the other terms, and I introduce you to a lot of these terms, I come out of the classical writings on the subject. So basically what happened in the 17th century, when nature was split from theology, then philosophy abandoned fate and many of the other words associated with it and focused on determinism. Now, within determinism, which is everything is caused from previous causes, the difficulty with determinism is that it does challenge the notion that we actually have free will, and that leads to what's called the free will debate or the free will dilemma. So part of that free will dilemma at the moment is there's an acceptance that determinism simply is, and that now philosophy is focusing quite a lot on what is free will and redefining the parameters of free will. So we have that complex debate over there. Within astrology, however, what my research work showed is that astrologers function in classical fate. They don't function in modern determinism, and that's the big difference. And classical fate is a very different creature to determinism. So you've got my notes on that, and you've got Nick's notes on that, so have a read of those. And what I've tried to do for you in my notes is to take the classical views on fate and link them, build a bridge across to the contemporary philosophy, so that we can actually get a common set of terms to talk about things. And in that way we can look at Plato's version of fate, which is based in spirituality and promotes individualization, and we can compare it, to example, to a Stoic view of fate, which is very altruistic and is a very different creature and therefore a different way of living with it. And the key here is that depending on the view of fate that astrologers have, or indeed that any person has, that will actually influence how they see a horoscope, what they expect of their astrology, and also what they expect of living in a sympathetic cosmological or a sympathetic cosmology. And indeed, to broaden it beyond just astrologers, but linking it much more into cosmology. So there's an article I've put up which broadens the debate on fate in this week beyond astrology, but also looking at much more into cosmology. And that paper is just down here as a PDF, and it's here, Fate, Sympathy and the Individual. And I've got that on your required reading for the week. I've put that there because it shows that fate is actually an expression or an extension of sympathy, and that any individual who believes that they live in a sympathetic cosmology actually will have a view of fate. So it's far broader than just astrologers. Okay, so it's going to be an exciting week. Lots of new terms. Just jot down the terms and get clear on the definitions. That's the key thing. So that when you listen to someone talking about fate or their views on the meaning of life, so you can listen to it and think, that sounds Stoic, or that sounds Platonistic. Learn to be able to hear those different nuances, and that would be a very good start. And then if you want to take this into doing a paper on it, then you can explore some of the other readings we've got here and some of the websites that I've recommended for you. Okay, welcome to week 7, and Nick and I look forward to engaging you with fate. Okay, bye-bye.